Quick pregame show here. I'm enjoying the new sort of show and tell format of the pregame show, and I think I'm going to keep that up. First item, this came today. This is an old friend from when I was younger, and I played more music. I had one of these guys, which is jaw harp. You can see it's got looks like a little abstract impressionist grasshopper there. It's got these two little tines, which go evening Swedish X, which go against your teeth. This fellow right here that you hold on to, and this plectrum. I don't know if it's a plectrum, but that's what we're going to call it. I think a plectrum is actually a name for a pick. And it's kind of viewed as like a novelty instrument, because you put it between your teeth, you use the cavern of your mouth and the cavern of sort of like your upper respiratory, and use it to make either like a harsh boing or kind of a buzz like this. And it's known among a certain generation. I don't know how popular Snoopy is still with the kids, but when I was a kid, it was also called the Snoopy Harp, because Snoopy would play that. And had his it's kind of one of his gimmicks, made him very cool and strange and neat. And so I played this a lot when I was younger, and am very excited to rediscover this, and am a little concerned about what it's going to do to my 41-year-old teeth, but we'll just have to be a little gentler on those, since they're a little less resilient due to the wear of time than when I was like 15, right? But something that it's really interesting to me, because there are a variety of forms that the upper respiratory takes: jaw, throat, and as you do certain thing. Evening Ice Man Dan, yes, it's one of these. It's a fine little instrument that I've got a great affection for. And so it's like it takes advantage of the full cavity of jaw, throat, and the sort of novelty sound that people associate with it, right? It's like this. It's like you get that by closing off the back of your throat, making your mouth a cavern, and sort of adjusting the height and sort of flexing the mid part of your tongue. And there's actually a whole range of sounds available beyond that, which has made it like since reading back up on it, like when I was a kid, right? Like I got one of these things that, like for $5 out of a bucket at the music store. Nobody knew what it was. I had to go around to all of my neighbors asking if anybody knew how to play it, and finally somebody did. Now there's the internet. That makes it a lot easier. So I've since learned the variety of names for this thing in different languages, and what is fascinating about this, nobody seems to have a category for it, and nobody seems to agree on what instrument it is most like enough to give it a name. So in English, it's a jaw harp, and so harp there is the thing that it's compared to, and you can kind of see that, right? There's a single thing that you pluck, and you get a sort of glittering note, if you think of it as like an Ozark glitter, right? Kind of like. Oh yeah, and this is the sound. If you open up your throat, you get this sort of like more cicada type sound, like this. And so you can still get that sort of that range, that pitch range, right? By adjusting your tongue, you just keep your throat open to deepen the cavern. And in German it's called a Maultrommel, which is I think lip drum. So it's likened to a percussive instrument, which you can kind of see, right? It's about, you gotta kind of hit there like. And I believe what is the I think there's the Danish word for it is I forget what the Danish word for it, but the older French word for it is jus de trompe, which apologies to Ark for and Dreambalm for any butchered pronunciation. A jus trompe is like a joy trumpet, and so it's also likened to a trumpet, which you can also kind of see, because so it emits this maybe potentially very abrasive sound, it's this sort of like nobody really knows what this is for. But if you listen to a lot of Kyrgyz music, some Hungarian folk music, and also, which is where I encountered it, Appalachian music, It's not so much like a forefront instrument. It shows up from time to time again, and that's one of the reasons why people kind of dismiss it as a novelty. It's not one of these cool hip instruments like the guitar that can go to a party and kind of take over. It's one of these fun socializing instruments that makes more sense with a group of people playing. And I actually think Maultrommel is the best word for it, lip drum, because it works really, really well as a percussive support. Because you can get a rhythm going, and you can actually change the closeness, the openness, and the pitch, and it's a really good support. And that's not to anything, so it's kind of a free-form rhythm there. But when you have somebody you're playing with, you can adapt to it very well. So, very cool thing to have rediscovered. The other thing, for show and tell, Iceman Dan, I actually took your question seriously. And yes, I agree, different kinds of folk music are fascinating. It's really cool for me to listen to the Hungarian... Oh yeah, something else that's really neat about that. Apparently, so many different cultures in the world, invented it simultaneously. It's not one of these things of cross-cultural exchange. Everybody just realized they could do it at the same time, and so many different variations exist on the same concept, and which is why you have whatever version was imported into England and then came over to the U.S. and became like an Appalachian music instrument. That's it. And then you have the Hungarian folk style, and so it's just really interesting. It's one of these instruments that you can already just do so much with and have a lot of reference for. But it is fun. It is fun to break out at a party. But again, works best if you have somebody to kind of jam along with. But I took your question seriously when we were talking about Robert Penn Warren. This man right here, actually, this guy right here. There we go. As a grizzled old Kentuckian right there, speaking of Appalachia. And you had asked, I'd said that he was a really good writer of murder and violence, and you had asked how that compares to Cormac McCarthy, and actually took that question quite seriously. So I decided to look. No, it's a fine question. McCarthy. I think McCarthy is a Texan writer, but anyway, it's sort of the same sort of southwest aesthetic that they're on they're not beyond comparison. It's the same sort of spectrum of aesthetic. And so the difference that I came up with: Robert Penn Warren probes, Cormac McCarthy cuts. Warren is ultimately interested in the ineffable, in what can be known through this world. One of his best lines is, "We must try to love so well the world that we believe in the end in God." And he is not a pious, he is not at all a pious poet. He's not a religious poet. He is a spiritual poet, and he uses aspects of the world and worldliness as a way of sort of promoting one's consciousness to the otherworldly. Cormac McCarthy, I think, is much more about. It's not shock. Shock is not the right thing for him. It is about sort of brutal, quick, surprising glimpses into the very sudden flashes away from our humanity that violence creates. And I found an example here that I will show you of Robert Penn Warren to kind of show you an example of this. So this is a poem with a violence in it. Let's see. Yeah, so this is Dream by Robert Penn Warren, and just to be clear, this dream in this instance, some of these lines can be read in the sense of dream, in the sense of aspiration or something that you reach for, but it's meant, it's sort of think of dream in the sense of being parallel to imagination, as something that is a cognitive mode that is fruitful, that gives back. That's kind of what dream means here. All the King's Men is the Warren that I haven't read that I need to, but here let's just kind of walk you through this. Waters hypnotic long after moonset murmur under your window, and time is only a shade of the underside of the beech leaf, which upward reflects a tiny refulgence of stars. There's a beautiful image of a beech leaf turned upward, and water inside it, and sort of reflecting the light of the sky there. It's beautiful. It contains both the beech leaf, and the large, the sky in a single image. It's fantastic. What can you dream to make time real again? I have read in a book that dream is the mother of memory, and if there's no memory, what is time? And here's where the violence comes in, because this is Warren's way of accessing that. So grapple your dream, like Odysseus the cunning who leaped on the mountainous Ajax, and snug in that lethal embrace, while heels slashed at soft-kneed backs, rode downward the great crash that bounced the head of the victim on hard ground, and jarred teeth from jawbone, and blood filled that mouth from its tongue like a grape cluster crushed. And that's not the McCarthy cut. That is describing the shape of it, and then you fill in the shape of it there with, and then you fill in the specifics. Yes, grapple, or else the morning star westward will pale, and leave your ghost without history even, to wander a desert trackless in sun glare. For the dream is only a self of yourself. It's a projection of who you are. And Jacob once wrestled night long his angel, and though with wrenched thigh had blackmailed a blessing by dawn. So there are two different kinds of violence, right? One where it's an antagonist, it's Odysseus and Ajax, and it's one of the classically brutal murders in the Iliad. And then there's this other Evening Space Hamlet. It's good to see you. It's about to head over to Killer 7, but with a look at somebody else who does stylized violence. And then there's Jacob, right, who's there's an act of violence as well, another grapple, another wrestle, except in that case it is with a figure who ultimately turns out to be a patron. So that's the difference between Robert Penn Warren's violence, and it's also very visceral. It's very, you can kind of look at that third stanza, and you can kind of almost see Odysseus doing like a CQC grab against Ajax, grabbing the shoulder, kicking the back of the knee, and except Odysseus has a little more intent there than I think Naked Snake does when you're grabbing a hostage. So that's an example of that, and thank you for asking. That actually led me to ask another friend who is also invested in Warren and McCarthy. He's actually more invested in McCarthy than I am, has invested more time, I should say, to kind of explore that, and that clarifies something for me as well. Oh no, Swedish X, no, don't worry. There's no expectation of this at all. I did this for like school and like for work for like years, so this is not a standard anybody is held to. I just hope you enjoy it. But yeah, so with that in mind, oh yeah, also I picked up a movie today when I got Kurosawa's what is it? Kurosawa's Madara-yo, which is apparently his last one that he made. It's kind of a drama comedy, and it's only 2 hours and 15 minutes long. I don't know what he was doing, slacking off. That's a popcorn movie for a Kurosawa film. Got the unambiguously titled Blackmail Is My Life, and picked this one up, and I did not even think about this before the stream tonight, but this is very also unambiguously named I Bombed Pearl Harbor, starring Toshio Mifune. And I Bombed Pearl Harbor is a perfect movie to transition us over to Killer 7, which is absolutely about international violence following World War II between the U.S. and Japan. Evening, Dustin. It's good to see you.